Well folks, it's the 5th of April today, and well, yes, you guessed it, more rain. This morning just torrential downpours. It kind of cleared up then in the middle of the day, and a bit of sunshine came out, but I think we've more rain forecast for tonight, and there's a storm coming in tomorrow. So I had actually hoped last weekend that by this weekend I might get a chance to get into one or two of the colonies, not necessarily to do full inspections or anything, but just to crack open the inner covers and see what's going on underneath. But just the way it's worked out, I haven't had a chance to do that. And but that being said, activity has definitely increased in the colonies, but I won't be dipping into any colonies this weekend. So just for now, I'm going to bring you back into the shed, and we might just have a chat about how I set up my supers, the first supers that I put on in the season with foundation, and we'll just have a quick chat about that just while the weather is nasty. And well, let's hope that we can get these supers on the hives, because the way it's looking now, there isn't going to be much of a honey crop this year. Whew. Yeah, so we're back in the workshop here now, and well, I don't know if you can hear it outside, but it's really raining cats and dogs at the moment. You might be able to hear it on the roof. In fact, if I hold my mic up to the roof, you might hear it. Yeah, so it ain't nice out there, and the workshop is obviously the best place to be in those in that scenario. So over the last couple of days I've been making up super frames, just in anticipation, I suppose, that I might be able to get supers on this year to collect some honey. As you can see in my videos so far, we're off to a bad start, but you know, fingers crossed. The sun will start breaking out through the clouds, and the flowers will start blooming, and nectar will start pouring in, and we can get these supers on. So just while I was making up my super frames, and obviously my plan is to introduce a load of foundation this year. I usually put foundation in every year, but this year I'm going to put in significantly more than I would normally put in. So I do like to get my foundation in early in the season, the first super, second super, possibly maybe into the third super, but as I go higher up in the stack, I'm introducing less and less foundation. So for the very first super that I put on, I'll just show you what way I arranged the frames. So here we have a 10 frame super box. It's a Paradise Honey box. And just these are new frames that I've made up, so they're empty. There's no foundation even fitted in them yet. But I've just written on the top bars here what each one is to represent. So we have foundation, for F for foundation, and DC for drawn comb. And essentially for the very first box that I put on, I like to put my drawn comb, usually, you know, 3 to 4, maybe 5 frames of drawn comb. for this, just for the purposes of this demonstration, I have 4 here, and I like to leave them in the middle. Now, ordinarily, I would have, you know, carried out an inspection at this stage of the year, and if the brood down below was sort of off to one side in the brood chamber, I would have centralised it. I probably won't have that luxury this year before I actually put the supers on, so it's kind of guesswork, and I'm just hoping that the brood is centrally located in the brood chamber below. But you get a fair idea of that at the same time by looking, say, where the majority of the cluster is tending to collect, if you look at the top bars of the frames before you put the super on. And you can then rearrange these 4 frames accordingly if you think that the brood is located elsewhere in the brood chamber and you can't actually get in to inspect like we have at the moment, because of, say, the weather conditions. So what I do is I put 4 frames of drawn comb, and I try to locate them over where I think the brood nest is. Now, the reason I do that is essentially because when the bees rise up at this time of the year, you're still, you know, the weather is still liable to get cold, and the bees might start clustering again. And if that's to happen, and if the bees are already up in the super, you know, working on that bit of drawn comb that you've put in, even if it's only just to clean it up, those bees that go up there will most likely stay up there if there's a cold spell, you know, 1 or 2 nights of frost, which we could still potentially get in the month of April. So I like to, that's the reason why I like to locate my drawn comb over where I think the brood nest is. Again, as I said, if I've actually inspected, I know for a fact where the brood nest is, but is because it kind of prevents immediate heat loss rising up. If you just have foundation here, the bees aren't going to be on it over the brood nest. Bees aren't going to be on it at this, you know, when you put this box on. So if you just put the foundation over the brood nest, you know, the bees aren't going to be on it straight away. Where they're going to go is for this drawn comb. And so, you know, if you have this foundation over where the brood nest is actually located, what you have here is just heat loss straight up through, you know, these frames. Okay, so if the weather was to turn cold, you have, you know, just a spot there above the brood nest, directly above the brood nest, that, you know, you have massive heat loss going on, and that just you know, that just creates stress for your bees, stress that they don't need at this time of the year when they're trying to build up the colony strength. So, you know, the supers kind of have to start going on even though the weather isn't there, because your colonies are gradually starting to grow, and if you don't get your supers on now and start giving them the space, you know, that swarming urge is going to come on them, you know, fairly quickly and early on into May, especially if, you know, the weather is to turn for the best, which we like to hope it's going to do. So that leads me on to the next point as to why I'm introducing foundation at this time of the year, because I find foundation, when it's added early in the season, is a great way of just holding back that you know, swarming instinct in the bees. They feel like they're growing a new nest, essentially. Yes, you've put in some drawn comb, and that's just to encourage them up into the box. And I should say, actually, I store my supers wet. So it draws the bees up. But also the honey residue, you know, which has been on since extraction last year, the honey residue that's there, the bees come up, it almost kind of mimics a nectar flow. Now, albeit brief, but it's there, and it just kickstarts the bees into, you know, thinking that there's an nectar flow. And it's a great boost for them. Now, look at, ideally, you would want to be putting on a full box of drawn comb, a wet super, for it to have the full effect that you want. But you know, even with 4 frames, it kind of gives the bees that bit of a kick. Now, what you will find then is, as the nest develops down below in the brood chamber and they start spreading out, and I should say as well, I do normally like to get 1 or 2 frames of foundation in below in the brood nest at this time of the year as well. But anyway, it's unlikely I'm going to actually get to do that if the weather keeps up the way it is. It'll have to be kind of mid-May maybe before I start putting foundation then in the brood chamber. We'll see how we go. But yeah, you will find that as the nest develops, you know, or the brood starts hatching below, the young bees start coming up into the super. There's drawn comb, which has already attracted, you know, the bees up into the box. If you were to put this all foundation, you would find the bees very slow to come up, even if there was a full-on nectar flow going on. What they would actually end up doing is plugging the brood chamber down below with the fresh nectar coming in before they would then move up into this box. And by that stage, you know, they've already plugged the nest down below. The queen then is restricted in her laying, and the urge to swarm comes on fairly quickly. So by adding the drawn comb, or by putting drawn comb immediately on top of the brood chamber, you draw the bees up, and they immediately have something to fill, you know, if a nectar flow is to start. And then it's just natural progression then leads them on to drawing the foundation, because by this stage then you have plenty of young bees you know, who have their wax glands and are eager to start drawing fresh comb. They start coming up and moving on to the foundation. So that's for the first super. When I'm putting the first super on. For the second super, I do it slightly differently, and I'll just show you that. What I like to have when I am kind of you know, staggering, say putting in foundation with drawn comb, I like to always have drawn comb located on the outside. No real reason for it other than the outside you will always find anyway is, you know, the bees are less likely to work. You know, the tendency for bees is to come up in the center and then start gradually spreading out, and you know, it's the outer frames are always the last and to get drawn or indeed filled, even if it is drawn, a full super of drawn comb. So because I want the bees to actually draw the foundation, you know, they'll be less likely to actually draw the foundation here on the outer edges. So I tend to just put drawn comb on the outer edge, on the immediate outer edge. And again, because these frames are stored wet, the bees are attracted to them, come up to clean them, and they will actually start filling them then. And then what I do is, you know, in this particular arrangement, the way I have it done here just for demonstration purposes, I have 2 of foundation, and then I have a drawn comb, and then I put again 2 of foundation and a drawn comb, and 2 of foundation and drawn comb. So, you know, you can also do it with every second frame drawn comb, and vice versa then with the foundation. And I find that this just gets them working the foundation a lot quicker, you know, to have, say, drawn comb included in the box than if you were to put on a full super of foundation. What you will find, you know, yes, if foundation is your only option, well, unfortunately, you're stuck with that. But if you have a bank of drawn comb available to you, but you want to introduce foundation, I find that this is the best way to do it, to intermingle it with drawn comb. Because otherwise what you will find is the bees will be very slow to come up into the foundation, and by the time they do, they've already actually plugged the space, they've already started plugging down below in the brood chamber, and that's not what you want. For sure, you know, you want the brood chamber below fully available to the queen to lay her eggs, and that's one of the ways of just kind of holding back that natural swarming instinct in the bees. So if you have drawn comb up in the supers, the bees are attracted up, they start storing, and then it's just a natural progression for them to, you know, move on to the foundation and start drawing that. thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. This is just the method I use to introduce foundation in my supers, you know, in the early part of the year. I find it works well for me. You know, if you think it should be done differently, or if you do it differently, or you think that this method is a useful method, just leave a note in the comments below. I'm always interested to read the comments, and if you have any questions, again, just put it in the comments and I'll try to respond as best I can. Hopefully very soon I'll be able to get into the colonies now. Just, you know, as you can see in my videos so far, the weather hasn't been playing ball whatsoever, and it's still very wet, and you know, most days it's quite cold as well, so the temperatures just aren't high enough to start delving into colonies, but hopefully we can do that in the next week or so. You know, it's kind of time. Normally at this time of the year I actually would like to have carried out my first inspections, even if it's just literally cracking open the top cover, you know, or the inner cover, which again, I'm not doing it at the moment. The only lids I've cracked on colonies really is just to check for feed in any of the colonies that I'm feeding. So you know, fingers crossed we'll be able to get into colonies soon and actually get supers on them now at this time, because colonies are starting to grow, and if I don't get supers on fairly soon, we're going to be looking at the swarming impulse coming into them. So let's hope for a change. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the next one.